Hello YouTube, GamerDad here. This will be video 4 in our 2D space shooter tutorial series in XNA. Like I mentioned in the previous video, which was part 3 of our player class, we will be working on our StarField background. So basically what I'm going to do is create a class for that, and then we can just add it in and throw it in our game1.cs as we need, and it'll be nice and consolidated into its own little class. So we'll get started. First we're going to create a new class. Right click your project over here, add a class. We're just going to call it StarField. Make sure it's on class, add that. Okay, and we'll just grab these using statements from our player.cs and copy those, because remember I mentioned before, when you first create a class in XNA, it doesn't give you any of the XNA using statements. So copy those, paste them here. We're going to make this class public, and we can get started. So just like most of our other classes, it's going to take 3 main things. It's going to be a public texture 2D. We'll call it texture, like usual. A public vector 2. We'll call it position, and then a public int speed to control how fast our StarField will appear to be moving, which I guess in turn is showing how fast our spaceship is probably moving in theory. So we're going to add our methods. Same as the other class, as our player class. We're going to have a constructor. Can't type right now. So public StarField. What we're going to want in our constructor, like I said, like normal, we're going to be setting just everything to null or 0 as common practice. And I did forget up here, we're going to want a couple more vector 2s. And we'll have basically what we're going to have to do in this is we're going to be instantiating 2 instances of this class, and we're going to have the first StarField kind of starting, in the main screen, and then we're going to have the second StarField starting on above that off the screen. So when the first one's done scrolling down, the second one we can just have the number 1 flip back up above it and keep coming down, almost like a rotating wheel on the screen, if you want to look at it that way. So I'm going to rename this from position to we'll just name it BG pos 1, and we'll create another one, BG pos 2, for background position 1 and background position 2. So in our constructor, we can just set texture to null. We'll set BG position 1 to new vector 2, and we'll set that at 0 and 0. So the way I have the StarField, when I sized the StarField image, the PNG itself, I made it exactly the width and the height of my screen, so it's 800 by 950. So what this is doing is setting the first background to just cover our entire screen. So we're setting it at 0, 0. BG position 2 will equal a new vector 2. We're going to set that at 0 on the X and negative 950 on the Y. So basically this second background image is going to be directly above the first one off the screen. And then we'll just set our speed to equal, we'll just go with, let's go with 5. And we can always change that if the StarField seems like it's moving too fast. Okay, and then we're going to do our public load content. So our load content, so that's a public void, call that load content, just like our player class. It's going to take content manager, content. We're going to set our texture here. First, actually, let's go over to our content in our Solution Explorer. right click on the your content. We're going to add an existing item, and 2D shooter graphics art. Now I put a link. I'll be putting a link to this graphics file in the description of all these videos, in case someone is partway through their own game and they just want to come in to see how to maybe put a background in. They don't have to go search through the previous videos to find the link to these. So I'll be placing this zip file in a link to this zip file in all of the video descriptions. But we'll load our space background, and like I said, if you want to take this image, and notice the dimensions are 800 by 950. If you want to go into Paint or something and resize the image to your background, if you set it differently than mine, I suggest you do that. So alright, let's load our space background. So we can set our texture now equals to content dot load. It is a texture 2D called space, is what I called the PNG over in our content. Okay, and that's all we need for our load content. We're going to do our draw method. Public void draw. It's going to be sprite batch, like normal. You'll find there's a lot of repeating in these classes because they all kind of use the same methods. What we're going to want to do in our draw, so just like the others, it'll be sprite batch.draw, and we're going to take our texture, because it's going to be the same texture for both. BG position 1, we're going to set that texture at BG position 1, which we have set above at 0, 0. So this is the texture that will be covering our screen initially. And then it just takes a color, which by default, you should know this by now from previous videos, just color.white. Okay, we're going to create one more, sprite batch.draw. This is going to draw our second background image, which is going to be directly above this first one. Same texture, because it is a seamless image. BG position 2, and color.white. Okay, that's all we're doing in our draw function. Next, like usual, our update, which is going to create the movement for our StarField. Public void update. That's game time. Scroll down here a little bit. Alright, in our update, we're going to be setting the movement first. So BG position 1 dot Y equals BG position 1 dot Y plus speed. So just like the movement for our spaceship, it's just going to take the background position 1's movement on the y-axis and add speed to that, which is 5 up here. And we're going positive we're adding speed because we're going positive on the y-axis, which is down. So it's going to give the appearance that the StarField is traveling down, which is going to make it look like the spaceship is flying up towards the top of the screen. You'll see what I mean. Second one is BG position 2 dot Y will equal BG position 2 dot Y plus speed as well, because we want that second one to be moving the same way. And then we're going to make these repeat. So I'll comment this. I'll just say repeating. Essentially, that's what it's doing. So so if the BG position 1 dot Y is greater than or equal to 950, I'll explain this after I'm done typing the code out. Then what's going to happen is BG position 1 dot Y is going to equal 0, and BG position 2 dot Y is going to equal negative 950. So what's happening here? Okay, we're setting our speeds. We'll comment this too. So we're setting our speeds here, and like I said, you can always adjust the speed up in your constructor if you want the StarField to move faster or slower. I forgot a semicolon. And then what we're doing down here, we're saying if the background position 1, which is the one that's initially covering the screen, is greater than 950, so once that hits the bottom of the screen, we want that to move its position back up to 0. So that's just repeating itself, and the background position 2 back up to 950. So it's basically just rolling over, and it's going to keep repeating the same backgrounds over and over again, so it looks like we're flying. And that's it. That's it for our scrolling background. I'm going to save this off, build it. What we need to do first is, now that we have our StarField here, we need to go into our game1.cs. Up here in the main, right under where we instantiate our player object here, we're going to instantiate a StarField object. We'll just call it SF for StarField equals new StarField. Okay, and then we can just go into our load content, just like we've been doing with our player class, and it'll be sf.load content. So we're loading the graphics, we're setting the space field image, the PNG, to our texture, which we did back in the StarField class. We'll go to our update, sf.update, game time, and then our draw. And here's the other thing too I wanted to talk about in how this is drawn. If you picture this as, let's say you're a painter, right? The way it works is we have our player being drawn right here. If I were to put, let's say I'm going to draw the StarField right here. Draw, spray patch. What's going to do? So essentially, this is how we want it. So we're drawing our StarField, and then next we're drawing our player. So the StarField is behind the player. If you picture a painter, the painter is going to paint the StarField onto the screen first, which takes up our whole screen, and then he's going to paint the player ship on top of that StarField, so you'll be able to see the spaceship. If we were to move, say, this down underneath the player ship, it's going to draw the spaceship, and it's going to draw the sprite, our StarField, right over top, so you'd never see the spaceship. So you got to remember, like a painter's order here, when you're drawing your stuff, when you're calling your draws, that if you want stuff, everything is going to be drawn after the StarField, because we want everything to be displayed over top of it. If you guys understand what I'm talking about here, and I think you do. So now that we have our draw called, our update, and the load content for our StarField, we should be able to save this off, build it, and we succeeded, no errors, and run it, and we should see our StarField scrolling down here with our spaceship. And we are. And it's a little laggy on my screen because, like I said, I'm frapsing. I know I tell you that every video. But yes, now it looks like the spaceship is flying through space. We're going to have our asteroids coming from the top of the screen, possibly some coming out of the side, and our enemy ships flying around that we're going to have to shoot at. Alright, we got our StarField going, we got our player moving. The next video is going to be the asteroid class, because I'm going to have separate classes, like an asteroid class for the asteroids, and then an enemy class for like enemy ships and things like that. So we'll have enemy ships flying around and asteroids coming at us. So next video will be asteroids. But until then, guys, as usual, if you like the video, please toss me a like. If you want to see the rest, go ahead and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Peace.